Thank you, guys.
Just when you thought it was safe.
I know.
To go back in the water.
Can we try it again or no?
Holding. I don't know. Alright, how's that?
Good.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, what was I saying? Oh, 6:34, we're going to call the meeting to order.
Alright, Brown?
Here.
I am here, Cargill,
Here.
Gunderson,
Here.
Mays, and Seifert, and Haven are both absent.
Is it really loud or is it just?
It's echoey.
Reverb.
Maybe we'll come down, you think? Alright, we'll give it a little bit, and if not, we'll have to turn around and just shout, I guess. So, okay, if you all join me in the pledge, appreciate it.
Can I get my exercise in tonight?
How many more days do we have?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, welcome. We'll just try the mics a couple times, see how it goes, and again, if it's too loud, we'll just
Turn down?
maybe out for a little bit. Or, is that better?
I just see it.
Yeah, it stands.
My exact hand. Apparently that wasn't.
Remember the old UHF antennas? All right.
There's no controllers besides that, huh?
All right, so let's go back to the old hall, right? Okay. If you can't hear us, just let us know. We'll do our best, okay?
You better move
Speak
forward.
up.
Yeah.
Move forward if you can't hear.
You're supposed to be able to hear from the back of the room.
Okay,
The
so
public
first
meeting.
order of
We have
business. We have the minutes of April 29, 26, regular meeting. And we also had a joint planning commission township board meeting on May 13, 2026. Everybody get the minutes? Okay, any additions, corrections, deletions?
I'll make a motion, we approve both minutes.
Okay, we have a motion, we have support. Motion and support, okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Okay, so tonight we have one case on the agenda, that's PPTEXT 2601, Emmett County Planning Commission Commercial Storage Text Amendment. And with that, Tammy, do you have a presentation? If you do, I would love to hear it.
I
Sincerely.
do have a presentation. So in December of last year, the Planning Commission was approached and asked to place a moratorium on storage uses within the county, allowing the Planning Commission time to review the zoning ordinance related to self-storage and commercial storage uses. In January, the Emmett County Board of Commissioners, who has the authority to enact a moratorium, enacted a resolution to put a pause on any storage, commercial storage uses, review or permitting. Everything related to commercial storage operations was to be paused within our office while it gave us an opportunity to review the zoning ordinance. So we immediately started in January, put together an evaluation, an analysis, if you will, of what the current zoning ordinance standards were. Some of the information that we were provided by the public was included in that analysis, and we drafted some possible text amendments for consideration. We sent that to all of the townships that have county zoning and asked for input. We did get some input from Bear Creek Township as well as other townships throughout the county. Not every township participated. Not every township does participate every single time. We send out to townships with all the text amendments that we propose for those townships that have county zoning, and then anything particular to that township, we also ask for recommendations, but not every single township does participate. So we, every month from January till now, the Emmett County Planning Commission has been reviewing what to do with our ordinance with regard to commercial storage. A couple of things have come up along the way. AI data centers is one thing. We had a large audience at one of our meetings, I believe it was in April, concerned about AI data centers coming to Emmett County. So that is something that we're reviewing separately, but we have come up with some text amendment suggestions based on the Planning Commission discussion over those several months, based on very specific standards that the Planning Commission went through and and authorize staff to modify, and based on public input. So, in the articles, 2, which is definitions, 8, which is farm forest, 11, which is B2, 14, which is industrial, industrial, 18, land use matrix, 22, which is general provisions, but particularly here it's about outdoor lighting, and then 26, which is supplemental regulations. So those are the sections that have been proposed to be amended. So more lately, following the June Emmett County Planning Commission meeting discussion, we updated the proposed text amendment, emailed the Emmett County Planning Commission members and others that have voiced interest along the way or have been involved in this process, and then forward a memo and draft to the townships that have county zoning for additional input. The draft included proposed changes made during the June meeting. Recommendations were provided by legal counsel and the format was updated. Following that, in July, the Emmett County Planning Commission meeting, again, the Planning Commission went through pretty much line by line and provided guidance to staff and direction to staff on how they wanted the proposed text to read. So we updated the proposed text amendment, forwarded again to the townships with the updated information, provided a memo, and advertised for public hearing. So at our next meeting in August, the Emmett County Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on the proposed draft. The Planning Commission draft was revised at that meeting, and then the public hearing was set for August 6th. So the meat of the change. In your package, you received a table that showed the differences between the existing ordinance and then what's being proposed. We have definitions for accessory building, commercial outdoor storage, commercial use, portable storage units. So some of these things were recommended by legal counsel, who Emmett County's legal counsel has reviewed everything that's being proposed, and their recommendations are incorporated into the draft that you received. Other definitions include commercial storage facility, warehousing, and then motor freight terminal. And then self-storage facility, that was one that was pointed out as being outdated back in December, and so that one's been updated. And then home-based commercial storage building, and I'll get into a little bit of detail on that one when we get to the supplemental regulations. Land use matrix, so we've gone back and forth on this. We did provide a township map, or a countywide map, to our planning commissioners in Emmett County showing all of the industrial zoning, all of the B2 zoning, and the commercial storage facilities that are located in Emmett County. And I know it's hard to see on the map, so we did break it down. So in Bear Creek Township, we have some pockets of industrial in the north, some in the middle part of the township, and then on US 131 south, where Kilwin's distribution center is, in that location, there's some additional industrially zoned properties. You'll note that along US 31 north, there's a large housing development that is Hearthside Grove that is industrially zoned. So that would be an area that likely would not be developed for storage or any other type of commercial or industrial use. Also, you can see the B2 highlighted in red. So we wanted to point out where the B2 was. Our recommendation originally was to remove storage buildings from B2 and only allow them in industrial. And then when we saw the actual industrial zoning in our ordinance, we suggested that maybe B2 would be appropriate. So that was the discussion. What was advertised and what the Planning Commission came up with was that they didn't think that commercial storage facilities and warehousing should be in B2, only in industrial and as a permitted use, but with supplemental regulations. So the land use matrix recommended changes would be to separate out the different types of storage uses. So we would have motor freight terminal and trucking facility allowed as a permitted use by right with supplemental regulations in the I1 zoning district. Commercial storage facility and warehousing allowed as a principal use by right only in the industrial zoning district with supplemental regulations. And then self-storage facility allowed as a special land use with supplemental regulations in the B2 zoning district. and as a permitted land use, again, with supplemental regulations in the industrial zoning district. And then you can see the sections that are called out after the land use in the matrix. There are different supplemental regulations for motor freight terminal, trucking facility. Those are the same as commercial storage facility and warehouse, but they're different than self-storage facility, which is section 26.42, so that's a separate set of supplemental regulations. And then home-based commercial storage buildings. So right now, our ordinance allows for, it's called contractors to be able to have a storage building on their property and rent it out for like storing RVs or boats or different things like that in a farm forest setting. And there are supplemental regulations for that, and it is a special land use. So we haven't changed the locations. Those are still permitted within the Farm Forest 1 and 2 as a special land use with supplemental regulations, but we separated out, placed it into the residential section of the land use matrix, and then added another supplemental regulation from into the zoning ordinance. If you would like, I do have the other townships, just kind of showing there really isn't, if you look at Springville Township, they have one, you can't even see it on the map, it's so small. They have actually 2 properties in the whole township that are zoned business. One is on East Mitchell and one is on Ellsworth Road, and so there's no industrial in Springvale. Friendship, same thing, there's no industrial or business in Friendship Township. They do have a pocket of PUD that allows for storage in the Stutzmanville State Road area. Littlefield Township has some industrial zoning off of M68, and then they have some off of Milton Road and the highway on US 31. They also have some business zone there. But you can see on this map, which is the center section of the county, there's very limited commercial or industrial zoning. Then continuing on north, Redmond Township, same thing, one little pocket of industrial there. Center Township has one little B2 property where the Moose Jaw is located. And then McKinley Township is the one with the larger purple area, and that is the airport. So the airport is owned industrial and has a PUD overlay, so any industrial uses could go on the airport property, but they're limited too by FAA rules. And I mean, there is a possibility for some storage uses there, but limited. And then as you go farther north, Cross Village Township has no industrial, Bliss Township has no industrial, and just a little pocket of commercial. And then Cross Village, or Carp Lake and Wawatam have a little bit of commercial and some industrial zoning. So as far as the actual provisions that are being proposed, outdoor lighting is proposed to add one line, and that is to limit the output of light out of windows. So if you have indoor lighting that emits outside of the building, then that has to comply with the section of the zoning ordinance that regulates outdoor lighting. So that was something that was requested by the Planning Commission, and our legal counsel put together this one sentence to add to the outdoor lighting section of the ordinance. And then commercial storage facility, warehousing, motor freight terminal, trucking facility. This was topic of debate and discussion at our last Emmett County Planning Commission meeting. We went over all of these items. Essentially, they removed it from business and allowed it only in industrial as a permitted use with all of these supplemental regulations. Deep setback or 300-foot setback from the state highways to preserve the more active type uses along the corridor. And then not along a lake shore or a stream. And I'm sure that you received this and went through it in your packet, but outdoor screening, regular screening, outdoor screening is the same, but from adjacent parcels that are residentially used or zoned residential was required, and that's extensively laid out there. They wanted details that were put together. Some regulations on signage, regulation on height, and then clarification on a few things. So there was some vagueness on access around the building, and that's been clarified. There is one thing that, fire department has to review and approve and authorize any of these types of uses. So that is something that was, maintained in all of these types of uses. Self-storage facilities maintained in B2 as a special use and industrial as a permitted use, both with supplemental regulations, and those are laid out here too. Again, distance from the highway. In this case, there's a height regulation that, within the 200 feet from the highway, 15 feet is the maximum height, and then once you get back farther than 200 feet, then the maximum height of the zoning ordinance would apply. And screening, again, this would be screening from public roads and residential uses that are adjacent. And then supplemental regulations for the home-based commercial storage building, those were very similar to what we have in the ordinance now, but they have been updated to slightly match others. Minimum lot size of 10 acres. There was a request to have an additional setback from off-premise dwellings, and that was added to the draft, so that's in there. Also along the way, at our last Emmett County Planning Commission meeting, we took existing storage facilities and applied the proposed text. We did that for the text that was proposed last month, and then we did it again for the proposed text that was going to public hearing in August. So what we found, this is the one on the screen here, this is Northland Self-Storage. This is on M68 in Littlefield Township in a planned unit development. So PUD has a little bit of discretion by the Planning Commission on how that would be established, but in this case, the standards of the ordinance would primarily be met. There would be no additional screening required here because there's no adjacent residential uses. The commercial storage facility and the what we're calling, well, like they're the, what are we calling those? The outdoor storage is set back at least 300 feet, and there is screening in front of this building, and they are perpendicular to the road. Storage buildings do not meet the 200-foot setback from a state highway. So that would be something that this one would not comply with that. And then we looked at Conway Storage in the Fochman Industrial Park and applied the standards. It meets the perpendicular arrangement to a primary access road. It meets the district dimension standards and sign standards. Additional screening features would be required to create a continuous visual screen to fully obscure storage buildings from the public road to a height of 8 feet, because Fochman Industrial Park Drive is a public road. Riding Marine in Keystone Park, this is in Littlefield Township, north of M68, it's zoned industrial. It does not occupy the property bordering a lake or river, so that would comply. Dimensional requirements of the industrial district, it meets the setback standards, height standards are met, parking and sign limitations are met. The buildings and the outdoor storage area are not visible from a public road, because in this case, Keystone Park Drive is private. So then we looked at the proposal that U-Haul brought before the Bear Creek Township Planning Commission in 2025 and applied the standards there. It complies with most of the standards, including the perpendicular arrangement to the primary access road. It did meet the 200-foot setback from the state highway for the self-storage facility. Sign standard would prohibit some of the signage that was proposed that's higher than 20 feet on the building walls. And the illumination from inside, we really didn't have details on that, so we couldn't check that for sure, but it would have to comply with those standards. Additional screening features would be required to create a continuous visual screen to fully obscure the storage building from public roadway at a height of 8 feet. And then commercial storage and warehousing is not allowed in B2, so that would not be allowable there. And then this is an example that was sent in from David McBride on it's called Monster Self-Storage. It's actually located in Florida, but he was just showing an example of what we could see coming to our community. This one would not comply with a lot of the standards that are proposed. It's sitting right on what looks like a waterway of some sort. It doesn't seem to meet the height standard, it's not set back from the road, and it's not screened, so it really wouldn't meet, our ordinance standards. There's, signage that would have to comply, and it wouldn't meet those standards either, so it's just an example. And then here's some that are, outside of Emmett County, but, an example of like a trucking facility. This is Frito-Lay Distribution Center off of Straits Highway in the Indian River, just to show you, kind of what a trucking terminal would look like, could look like. It meets the definition in our draft for motor freight terminal. It's not on a state highway. Minimum 30-foot setback would be required. Other dimensional standards likely would be met here. Parking, access, and sign standards appear to be met based on applying our standards. And then there's no adjacent residential use to screen from, so that would be allowable in an industrial zone. And then this one is Cisco Food Services, kind of a trucking facility, but they don't really have the terminal type. They just have an open parking lot for trucks to come in, maybe swap full and empty trailers or something. I'm not really sure exactly how it works, but they do have like a circle drive. They're on a private road. It meets the definitions for motor freight terminal. It's not on a state highway, meets the setbacks, parking standards are met, no adjacent residential use to screen, so that would be allowable. So that's the draft before you. We did receive comments from your fire chief. I think you got those yesterday, or at least I got those yesterday. I think that, we're looking at land use, and there are provisions in the fire code that would have to be met, and we would ask for the fire chief's review on every application that came before us. That would be one of these. I think it's also important to think about the land uses that might become non-conforming if you move forward with this. Just things to consider as you discuss and decide how to recommend. As you know, your recommending body, you'll recommend to your township board. Your township board will then recommend to Emmett County Planning Commission. Emmett County Planning Commission in this case is also a recommending body because text amendments are decisions that have to be made by the County Board of Commissioners and not by the Planning Commission.
I have a couple questions when I was going through all this. On that 26.30 commercial storage facilities, where it says number 3, setback at a minimum of 300 feet. Mm-hmm. Okay, for those buildings. And then you go down to 2642 and number 3 there, or number two. Mm-hmm. For self-storage, and it says anything greater than 15 feet shall be set back by a minimum of 200 feet.
Right.
I guess if it's greater than 15 feet, it's almost like what stated in number 3, so why wouldn't that be 300 feet too?
The Planning Commission went through line by line,
Yeah.
and they determined that, in our minutes, it states that they were satisfied with 200, so we went back and we had that same question. We went back and reviewed it, and that's what they came up with.
Because if it's greater than 15.
It's still gonna have to meet the front setback of the zoning district, so if it's an industrial or residential, industrial or B2, it would have to meet that front setback, and then it can be 15 feet high back to 200 feet off of the highway, and then it can be up. Kind of thinking that you're gonna have some screening, and the building is going to act as a screen as well.
My other question is too, I didn't see it for length of time on your, down farther, where you can have at your home, you can bring in a storage unit, for
So this would be,
construction with you or whatever. How long are they allowed to stay there?
so this would be a permanent building that you could use. You could put up a building and you could rent out space in that building for people to
Yeah,
bring
not
their.
those kind.
No,
This was,
She's talking about like if you're moving and you rent a storage box.
Yeah,
those
temporary.
boxes and that, those temporary type boxes, or that storage boxes and that, if you had a temporary storage box, is there a limit on those?
so if they're 200 square feet or less, you're allowed one, and it could be there forever because those are allowed, accessory structures are allowed by right in any zoning district if you have a permitted use. So if it's 200 square feet or less, there's not a time limit. If it's greater than that, the building department, I believe, has a time limit of 6 months for,
There's a time limit somewhere in the building department or someplace.
for building code, but also, Emmett County zoning ordinance does allow for, those types of uses while you're constructing a home. So if you're building a home, it could be there indefinitely until your home is done.
Yeah.
And then some of them you've seen around that might become permanent, they likely receive a permit for it, or should have received a permit for it if it's over 200 square feet.
Okay.
Just a quick question. So I appreciate all the examples you gave on the proposed amendments, how they would fit in. For home-based commercial storage, do we know how many of those are in Bear Creek? And how would the 10-acre minimum affect those to be in compliance?
I don't know how many are in Bear Creek Township currently. So the current ordinance allows for the planning commission to authorize, like modifications, to the standards that are listed. I could find that out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, just curious about that. Okay. Hi Jeff. Anybody have anything else for Tammy? I kind of like to go out to the public right away, hear some opinions. Okay, all right, I'm gonna open it up to public comment first. Laura, would you mind keeping time? Awesome, all right. We'll keep it to 3 minutes, appreciate it. Hi Nate.
Hi, Mitch.
I don't know if that'll work without this being on. We
Okay,
can try
I'll
this
talk
again
loud
if
so
you
everybody
want
can
to.
hear.
It's been long.
Okay, bear with me a sec. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Nate Hall, most of you know me, Bear Creek Township, Atkins Road. I would encourage all of you to take another look at the setback requirements for self-storage units in the B2 district. As the ordinance is currently written, only buildings taller than 15 feet are required to have a 200-foot setback. Any self-storage facility under 15 feet would only have to meet the standard setbacks, but then would be required to be completely screened from road frontage with either an 8-foot tall staggered evergreen buffer or a solid privacy fence. Take my facility in Conway along US 31 as an example, which is almost 20 years old. It was built with standard setbacks and no screening required. Now imagine that same property under these proposed rules with double rows of 8-foot evergreen trees or a solid privacy fence stretching all along the highway. Is that really the look we want for our commercial corridor in Bear Creek Township? Wouldn't it make more sense to require the 300-foot setback, which was originally proposed for all self-storage facilities in the B2 district, regardless of height? That additional setback would create space for an active customer-serving business to be located in front of the storage facility. It would encourage development that creates jobs, generates more economic activity, and provides services that would benefit our entire community. Let's save our prime commercial frontage for small businesses. Storage is a passive use and simply does not need frontline exposure. Ask yourself, would you all rather drive past a locally owned small business or a long privacy fence hiding a storage facility on one of our major highways? I would also encourage the board to recommend a maximum building height of 15 feet for all self-storage facilities in the B2 district. We should carefully consider what our commercial corridors will look like in the future. Allowing large multi-story facilities along these corridors could permanently change their character, and I don't believe that's the vision of our community that has for our primary commercial areas. Thank you for the board for taking all this time to review this, and your input will absolutely matter at the county level. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Jackie Hall. I might need like 3 minutes and 15 seconds. A recent case that came in front of this board has shown us just how important it is to get these ordinances right. The words matter, the definitions matter, and once an ordinance is adopted, it will guide decisions and shape development for many years to come. I still believe that there's more work to be done on this text amendment. When we look at our 3 closest neighbors, the city of Petoskey, Resort, and Springville, a clear pattern emerges. The city of Petoskey allows self-storage only in industrial districts. If you recall, they recently just turned down a monster storage facility attempting to go into the old Kmart, citing it was an industrial use. Warehousing is permitted in their B3 district, but only with a special use permit. Resort Township allows self-storage in the B2 district, but only with strict standards, including a 300-foot setback from the public road right-of-way. Warehousing is only permitted there in their industrial districts. Springville Township currently follows the Emmett County ordinance. However, I know Tammy said they don't have much land there, but 4 of their board members submitted comments during that first comment period and believed that all storage and warehousing belonged in industrial districts. While they don't have the land that could change in the future. Their comments remind us that zoning is not just about today's development, it's about planning for our future. So why not align ourselves with our neighbors? Isn't that exactly what we're doing tonight by aligning Bear Creek Township's master plan with Emmett County's master plan? The July draft that we're going to talk about tonight of the master plan specifically identifies warehousing and storage as industrial land uses under the future land use map. If our master plan recognizes warehousing and storage as industrial uses, shouldn't our zoning ordinance reflect the same vision? One argument we heard tonight is that there's not enough industrial land, or we heard prior, and placing all these storage uses would consume valuable industrial property. However, self-storage, commercial storage, and warehousing are all permitted by right in industrial districts. This amendment is not creating a new use in these industrial areas. It's deciding where they should be allowed. It's deciding whether these uses should be allowed into our commercial corridors. This amendment is not about today's projects. It's about the future of Bear Creek Township, what we want to see in our corridors to look like in 10, 20, 30 years from now. Do we really want more large 30+ feet storage buildings, man caves lining our commercial corridors? Or do we want those corridors reserved for businesses that create activity, employment, and economic growth while directing passive storage uses to appropriate industrial areas? This is our opportunity to shape our future. Let's take the time to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler?
I don't have much to say, but I think one of the reasons we started this whole process in the very beginning was because we didn't want these uses in business. And this goes back to the same problem that we have now when we start talking about industrial. We say, well, we don't have industrial, where are we gonna put that? And I think the problem is we're trying to decide in advance. And when you do that, I know that people have talked about a section of industrial that isn't gonna be used because somebody has purchased it and is holding on to it. And when you do it in advance, it just isn't gonna work because that is what's gonna happen. And you want industrial for all of these different uses we were talking about, you know, all the contractors and things like that. But if one person knows that this is gonna be industrial and grabs that, they end up pricing those people right out anyway. So I'm not sure that not having industrial is a good reason not to limit things to industrial. I think we're gonna have to find that when it becomes necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy, any chance you can pull up a picture or two for me? The Lansing project? I'm David McBride, 45-year resident of Bear Creek Township. And yes, that is my facility, and the Planning Commission went out and measured and looked at it and took pictures, and I'm proud that they did. And my suggestion is, and it's been discussed for a few minutes, pushing these storage buildings back. And we're not talking about pushing them back on every piece of commercial property, but on the main highways. There is no reason, and I own the facility, when we put 8 foot of screening in front of 3 or 4 or 5 buildings that have storage, that they need to be right up on the highway. That space could be used for a car dealer, whatever, some kind of a retail operation that can easily be pushed back and still survive as a business and grow as a business. That's my suggestion. And this all started when we talked about the U-Haul facility and Hearthside Grove, protecting that corridor and making it not all storage along there, leaving it so that it could be businesses. And oh, by the way, on the flip side of using industrial space for storage, you have storage eating up business space. So there's two sides to that coin. Now, can you show one of the monster storage buildings, please? I've been involved in a lot of these meetings, and I have to acknowledge and commend the planners for all the hours that have been spent. And there's a tremendous amount of quality work in here. Whether we agree or not, every word has been thought about very, very deeply. 2 letters have been sent by the Resort Bear Creek Township Fire Department, very highly recommending specific actions take place around these facilities for the safety, welfare of not only the community, but the firefighters that might have to fight a fire. And just imagine that there's a fire in the monster storage facility, which possibly could be proposed in Bear Creek Township, and you've got 300 locked rooms. We have no control about what goes into each one of those units. Could be propane tanks, gasoline tanks, lawn mowers, ammunition. You don't know. And I personally think that the zoning right now needs to be looked at as a safety issue. How do we limit the size and the scope of these buildings so if unfortunately there is a fire, it can be fought and we're not losing any of our firemen, any of our community. And oh, by the way, there was a major fire at the facility on M119, 9 months ago. They lost the whole building. If that was a multi-story building, I don't even know what happened there. So just something to think about. He wrote a very thorough letter on that. I am not a fireman. I don't know anything about fighting fires besides putting water on it. And I thank you for your time and your attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else like to speak? Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it up to the board level. So looking for some recommendations and thoughts on the current draft. So I'm sure you've all read it. Heard a lot of good insight today. So anybody like to start?
Well, I have to agree, I think Al's letter was very, very thorough. And a lot of that, I think, should be incorporated, and if it's not already, put it in it. And that, I have to agree with the question I asked earlier about the 200 feet and the 300 feet. Maybe it should be all 300 feet, you know, rather than 200. And, other than that, that's about my comments.
Okay, thanks. All right, you know, I've got some mixed thoughts about commercial only and industrial for the reasons all listed tonight. You know, we don't have a lot of industrial space, it eats it up. But at the other hand too, I understand there's better uses along the main thoroughfares than commercial storage. So really I and I'm not sure where that would go if we did argue that. The county seems very, very determined to keep industrial commercial storage. So instead I kind of focused more on some screening issues that I saw. So I just kind of want to go through this with you guys for screening and see what your thoughts are. Starting with commercial storage warehouse. First off, looking at the standards they're proposing for screening. Loading docks overhead, 80 foot or larger, be fully obscured from residential, continuous visual screening greater than the height of the loading docks. So I'm not understanding, I guess, why such excessive screening in industrial. That part kind of confused me. And then the residential uses are next to industrial to begin with. I don't know, if I have a house next to industrial, I kind of expect to see things like that. To me, the screening that's suggested seems excessive. So that was one thing I wasn't quite sure.
What seemed excessive?
Screening. And then you look on the next page too, screening shall be achieved at a minimum height of 12 feet. And again, I'm not sure why, when the screening is 8 foot in self-storage and home-based commercial. So why is the screening more excessive, seemingly excessive in industrial than in self-storage and commercial? And then the last question I had is, under permitted screening features, just maybe Tammy, you can answer, solid privacy fence. So are they talking about a 12-foot tall fence as an option?
So can I address
Yeah.
all of your
Sure,
comments?
please.
So this was, originally, this was proposed in B2 and I up until last month. And then, it was changed to just industrial. And then the screening standards were changed, so it's just screening from residential uses, not screening from industrial to industrial.
Okay.
And then the A through D under 3, those are options, so you could use a privacy fence in conjunction with, trees to achieve the, required screening. Those are options of different types of things
Sure.
that you could do.
So C would be a 12-foot tall fence though?
I'm sorry?
C, option C?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you could use a combination of A through D.
Right, understood. Okay, I just want to make sure I got that. And again, so with that said, residential next to industrial, it just doesn't, it seems like any house that's next to an industrial park would come to expect these type of things in industrial use. So the screening still seems to be excessive to me from residential uses. Just my thoughts. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
But really so I'm trying to think right now in that area where we have industrial, the Hearthside Grove, and I mean, how much industrial do we really have butting up to residential now? How much do we have, right? I'm assuming that what we have there is grandfathered and there's probably a mix of screening versus not screening, I'm assuming. So if this is for going forward, I mean, I would like to think that we would take a long, hard look at it. Industrial is finite, it seems like in our township. We have a finite amount, right?
Right.
What's the practical or realistic? How realistic is it for anybody to come forward and say, I want to put 3 houses next to this big industrial park? I mean, we're probably talking change of use, or, I mean, realistically, how much are we really dealing with there? I think I would take a long, hard look as far as.
A homeowner?
What's that?
Being a homeowner or prospective homeowner?
Yeah, I mean.
Same.
Yeah, and if that was the case, I mean, I would say in that situation where we would have residential, I would err on the side of the most aggressive, high screening as possible to, but again, if there's something going on with the change of use or someone with residential, or they're going into that knowing, oh, I'm going up to an industrial park, so they're accepting that anyways.
Oh, that's kind of my thought too, and it just seems like an excessive burden for, a commercial storage unit that is going in,
Right.
It just seems excessive.
And if there's commercial/industrial already there and homeowners are going up to it, is it fair to take that business owner and say, okay, we're moving next year, you put up this screen, when they know?
That wouldn't be required. This would be a new, commercial storage facility, warehouse, motor freight terminal,
Gotcha.
or truck
Okay.
facility going
Yeah, I'm just
into-
trying to parse that a little bit, so.
Yeah, so if you decided you wanted to put your house next to an existing or, an existing facility like this, there's no requirement for them,
Right,
for the
right.
business to go back and screen because somebody decided they wanted
If
to put
it's
their house
commercial
there.
going up and there's already houses there, then, I mean,
This would
probably
be
want to be pretty aggressive
a
with
new
screening.
use coming in under that category, they would have to
Okay.
screen up against residential.
Okay, and I don't have a problem with screening, but to a point, that's all. That
Well,
seems,
we deal with screening on almost all our projects anyways.
we do.
Maybe it's not that the 12-foot needs to go down, because I agree with Jeff, if there's existing homes there, they should be protected. I agree with your point, though, that the homes in the industrial shouldn't be screened more heavily than homes against a business use. So maybe the issue isn't that the 12 needs to come down, it's that the 8 needs to go up. in the other half.
Okay. All right,
So that
interesting
they're,
perspective.
that way they're both screened
Yeah,
equal.
it just seems funny that it's more aggressively screened in industrial than, you know.
I agree.
All right, and then moving on to self-storage facility. So I know they kind of touched on this at the county, but number 6, self-storage buildings should not be used for any business activity. But I wasn't quite sure what business activity is defined as. Is there an actual definition of business activity? I mean, it's even discussed, like, you know, a lot of times in self-storage, you know, business owners will store their materials or things like that. So is that construed as business activity if they come and pick it up, or they
Well, it's got
have?
right in it, it's like residential, commercial, or industrial uses, saying.
Right, that was addressed, that you can use a storage facility to store
Right.
residential or commercial items.
Right.
You just can't use it for, you know, like,
Is it only for commerce? So I mean, if
no,
three,
not for commerce,
if
just
three-
for storage.
No, I know, so I mean, I get that part.
Yeah.
But I mean, if 3 people meet up there in the morning to grab all those things every day, is that business activity, or that wouldn't be
That's
defined as?
gathering their
Okay.
stuff that's stored, their
For,
materials that
yeah,
are stored.
self-storage, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to be.
Well,
They're not working out of that building.
Right, and no
Per
commerce is
se, there's
being
not an
taken
office
in.
in there, and that's where it's just picking up supplies, they
Yeah.
keep their supplies.
And that's not business activity, that's all I wanted to make sure that wasn't
I
defined
wouldn't
as.
classify as business.
Well, I brought that up this past summer at one of the meetings, but my point is when we approve these storage units, I usually don't have a problem with them because they're really low impact. They don't generate much traffic, and we allow it. But when and I understand that businesses have a problem trying to find a place to store stuff, they can't afford the land, and it kind of makes sense. But on the other hand, now the use of that property's changed. I mean, it's increased in the traffic flow depending on how much of this activity goes on. That's all. I mean,
Yeah,
it does. I mean, I don't have a problem with them because you never hardly see a car pulling in and out of a storage unit.
agreed.
But if they start doing that, then it changes traffic flow.
Right. Okay. All right, and then, going in, continuing on that self-storage facility, screening standards. All storage shall be fully obscured from view from public roads, or any residential uses on adjacent property with a continuous visual screen. Screening shall be 8 foot. And again, to me, that just seems excessive to be, you know, fully obscured from public roads, from residential. I mean, it just seems like a lot. 8 foot. I don't know what anybody else's feelings are. I'm all for screening. You know, we've had many cases where we've hammered on screening, but I don't know. It just seems a little excessive. I don't. If nobody agrees with me, that's fine.
Well, and
Okay
when you
with
look
that.
at the examples too, you know, the pictures of what is actually there. Oops, wait. None of those have what I would consider to be obscuring, screening. But, you know, here's Northland Self Storage has some screening in the front. There is some scattered screening here, Conway. This one, there isn't any because it's in the industrial park. There's nothing shown there. There's, you know, a few trees here, certainly not fully screened.
Harbor Park would be a classic example of fully screened.
And it has an active use in front. Yeah.
But they're
Or like, Yazaki, formerly Circuit Control, that is fully screened.
Back to your comment you just made, you said, please clarify that for me. It basically says totally completely,
Yeah, fully obscured from public roads or any residential use.
okay, so we're talking a 15-foot high building, that's not you can't do that.
Continuous visual screening.
Okay, totally to me, okay, you're gonna block out a 15-foot, it seems a little
Excessive.
because how do you accomplish that?
Right.
I mean, and who enforces that definition? If it's, solid screening that's 6 foot tall, well, guess what, with all that screening in front of that Mr. McBride's place there, I can still see the buildings. How do you're not, I don't see that being really accomplishable. I mean.
But not practical either, and that's my point. And
Right.
to Jim's point too, I mean, self-storage doesn't generate that much intensive use too, where you'd want that kind of screening, So there's not that much intensive use, Alright, so.
Is it better to have a percentage of the building screen?
Maybe, or like in David's place, it's almost more decorative and aesthetically pleasing than screening. And I mean, I know that's only one facility, but like he said, he was prideful to have it looked at, and it's well kept, it's not visually ugly. There's plenty of commercial businesses in our township that are quite displeasing to look at. And generally those have to be well kept or else people won't facilitate them. So, theirs is the same way, they're pleasing, I mean, considering what they are. So I don't know, to me it seems excessive.
Some of your storage units are just plain Jane metal boxes. And I can see if there's something on that, or you wanna screen that, or put something in front so it makes it a little more aesthetically pleasing than, but I don't know how you pick and choose or whatever, to do that. To say, to put the words in here, you can't say,
Yeah, well, like I say, I see it more as we have in our zoning regulations, so many trees per square foot, that type of deal, more aesthetically pleasing than screening. So, I don't know if that's, the spirit of this argument can be construed as a suggestion, okay. It seems we're all on the same page with
Your
that.
minutes will be provided to the planning commission for their consideration.
Okay, all right. And then the only other thing I had was home-based commercial, and Tammy pretty much answered that. I was just curious, how many of these sites we had, and if they would actually, how many would meet the parameters of a 10-acre minimum. So, again, that's really my concerns were mostly on screening, you guys. So,
unfortunately, a lot of those that you're talking about, those home-based ones, and with a dog will be grandfathered.
oh yeah, absolutely.
We have a ton of them out there.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna shut them all down.
No, you can't.
It's just how many would be out of compliance is what I was going after,
I don't think you wanna know.
Maybe not. I know there's a lot out there. All right, and I won't address this, but I'll just ask you guys, does anybody wanna discuss setbacks?
Yeah,
There's been
I was
some.
just gonna bring that up.
Please do.
And I apologize if I missed this, but I caught it during public comment. Is the current setback in B2 300 feet, and it's being changed to 200 feet? Because where did that,
One of it's 300, one's 200.
what's that?
I asked the question because on commercial storage facilities, it says 300 feet, but when you go down to the self-storage facilities, it's 200 feet on the height. So,
It isn't,
no,
no, it says,
Well, that's
all
right.
proposed buildings, this is the current. All proposed buildings nearest to the primary access road shall be site planned to be perpendicular to the road or be positioned to the rear of other approved non-storage or non-warehouse buildings, or be set back 300 feet from a public road right-of-way line. So if it's perpendicular to the road, then it doesn't have to meet the 300-foot setback, it just has to meet the minimum setback standard within the zoning district.
Okay.
And so if you think about the newer one on Anderson Road, those are perpendicular to Anderson Road. They meet the setback, and then there's, drive in front of those, so they're probably set back about 50, 60 feet, maybe from the right of way, maybe less.
So basically, if that was running adjacent to it, it would have been a 300-foot setback?
Yes,
Okay, and that's the proposal is to change it to 200 feet?
if it's 15 feet or higher, if it's higher than 15 feet. if it's 15 feet or lower, then it would stay at the minimum setback, according to the proposal.
I know you're thinking,
And that's from a state highway,
Okay.
But
from a state highway.
the 200 feet was the self-storage, the 300 feet was the commercial.
Yes. Yes.
sorry.
And then the current ordinance requires 10 acres minimum for, the storage facilities in Park Forest 1.
I missed the first part.
The current zoning ordinance
Yep. Oh.
requires the 10 acre minimum.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
10 acre minimum for self.
For the storage buildings in Park Forest 1 or 2.
Correct.
And that's not changing. So, maybe I'm just like late to the party because home-based commercial storage was already in the ordinance. But I'm really struggling to grasp how that's even enforceable, because if I build a pole barn and I store my boat, how does my neighbor know if I'm storing my boat or Johnny's boat? Like, to me, it just seems like, I don't wanna over restrict somebody. I understand if it was this giant pole barn that had, you know, like 4 boats in it, that's one thing. But if it's your, I guess I'm just kind of struggling with how you would even know that a building is a commercial, so that how could you know that you need the 10 acres or the, what,
Well, typically it's reported by a neighbor.
I think that's why I even asked him, you know, if he has any idea how many we have, because I didn't think she'd have a finite number, but.
No, because I'm sure it's going on all over the county, where people are storing other, I mean, my neighbor stores our boat for us in the winter, he doesn't charge us anything, we plow his driveway, you know, I mean, things like that happen all over the county, we're not going out actively seeking violations like that, but if somebody comes in and say, you know, I see a need for storing some boats and RVs, can I do this? There's a provision in the ordinance that allows for it. If you're storing a few of your neighbors' items, we're not gonna know unless somebody reports it.
it just doesn't seem like it would be a very big nuisance. So I don't wanna overly restrict
Right.
somebody for something that's not a nuisance. That would be my concern.
It would just be an option for somebody to do it if they decided they wanted to pursue it, a legal option. If it's not in the ordinance, then it's technically not permissible.
Just for a point of reference, so recommending I get it all the different steps up to the county planning, and then it goes to the county commissioners. So we've seen several versions of this as well as the county planning. Has the commissioners seen this at all, or what is their involvement been up till now, or did they only get the final draft
Well, they only get whatever is recommended.
at that? So they haven't seen any of the prelim stuff?
We have 2 members of the Board of Commissioners on our planning commission, and they wouldn't see it.
Okay, okay, and then when it comes time for them to look at it, and do those 2 participate in that, or no?
Yes.
They do, okay, even though they're on?
Yeah, because it's a recommending body to the from the planning commission to the board.
Okay,
So there's not the same law that says a ZBA member can't vote on something the planning commission reviewed.
okay, all right. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to make a comment, it's kind of it's got to do with Al, and, you know, this talk about tonight about you don't know what are in these storage facilities. I just helped somebody move from the storage facility somewhere else. And in that storage facility, they had an 800-pound safe, which was a beast to handle. But it had like 10,000 rounds of ammo in it. Now, I don't know if the thing could blow up under high heat, but that's back to, he's just in the process of moving, only had the unit for a month. There were no guns in the safe, it was full of ammo.
Where do you move it to? No, you don't know what's in his house.
Huh?
You don't know what's in his
No,
house.
I get that,
Yeah.
but but I see what they're talking about.
I don't mean exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what.
It's not at my house.
You know what I'm saying?
But to your point, Tammy, to have, and I certainly think that safety is a concern, but yes, we don't know what's in a storage unit, but we also don't know what's in somebody's garage, pole barn,
Right.
house. We could have these hazards anywhere and everywhere.
I was just bringing that up with the point that that's something that was in a storage unit, that's all.
I guess my thought on that is, you know, our responsibility stops at a certain point. You know, I don't think we have any right to intrude upon a person's privacy as far as what they keep in their storage facility, my personal opinion. That is regulated by the owner, that their policies that govern that, and it's their job to enforce it. Whether, I have no idea whether the owners have the ability to spot check everything. Do they go do random checks and make sure there's nothing hazardous? They could keep anything in there, right? I'm sure there's certain privacy laws and rules that have to be followed on both ends. But, you know, we could go down a huge rabbit hole, but I don't think we can put any type of, our job can't be to enforce what's put in there. I mean, yes, we can be concerned and stuff, but, you know, I've been more concerned about someone having five-gallon cans of gasoline than a safe full of ammo, to be honest with you.
And by the way, we did empty the ammo out of the safe.
But I'm saying that's the owner's responsibility to deal with those issues, but if there's a way for me to find out who has that gasoline stored in there, I won't get a storage facility there, right? No, seriously, but we can only stop, we have to stop at a certain point.
Well, I think part of it too is, you know, with the fire department, in industrial, like ZD Metals, they have a plan, they have an understanding of what is in the inventory. They already have a pre-plan on how to fight a potential fire that's in there. Where to David's point, you know, the problem with like a mega facility might be not only not knowing, but having 300 locked doors within the facility, you know, and that's the part that makes it tough too. And I understand that was a valid point. So, I mean, that's where the hard part is.
Yeah.
All right, Tammy, any other thoughts? I think we're coming to the end here.
No. Looking for your input.
All right, anybody else? All right, I hope that's some input, maybe somewhat helpful.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud.
I think it would be helpful to provide a motion so that it's the board, the planning commission as a whole, because otherwise they're individual discussions and topics that you want us to consider, which the planning commission does take those into consideration,
Yeah.
but when you speak as a whole body, that
Okay.
is what we're really looking for.
Not sure how anybody would want to craft that motion if that's.
I'll give it. Thanks. I'll make a motion that we accept the definitions as provided to us on storage units, along with the land use matrix. And I don't have, I mean, we've discussed the 300 feet, the 200 feet, the height and all that, and it's been explaining that, so I'm not going to change, I personally am not changing anything in regards to the screening, the way it's verbally said here, or written. I'm going to leave it as is for the way it's presented to us tonight. I thought it was pretty well thought out.
Can she add anything to the motion, such as taking into account the discussion that was had during the meeting? Is that?
I guess the only other thing that I would put in there, I would like to take into consideration some of the fire chief's comments that he made in regards to his, you know, I think planning zoning, doesn't it already have the parameters and the turning points and all that? Don't we already have that in our zoning?
Yes.
Most of that he's.
Maneuvering and.
That's mostly already in there, so we don't need it placed in here, do we?
The county will get that recommendation from the chief too, so I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll have to necessarily be.
I mean,
in our
certainly the our planning commission and the county board will receive the full minutes that are provided. But it's helpful to have a motion from the full body.
Sure.
As well.
So that's clear as mud.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I
So
said
it's all
motion
good.
that we're to approve the general provisions and the matrix and, the way they are written, along with, take into consideration the fire chief's comments.
And the setbacks and the screening, you wanna leave?
And I'm leaving the setback and screening as is. Like it, take it or leave it.
Alright, so I mean, they'll see our motion, but they'll also take into account some of the discussion that was had too, you think?
It'll be provided to them.
Okay. Alright, so we have a motion,
We have a second.
and Denny a second. Any other discussion on this? Any discussion? No? Okay.
Gunderson,
Yes.
Haven,
Yes.
Mace,
Yes.
yes, Brown.
Yes.
And Cargill.
Yes.
And Seaver is absent.
Okay. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, that's fine. I've got a little one too.
Okay. We'll go next is public comments. So this will be the only time for public comments on the master plan. So if you'd like to make a public comment about the master plan or whatever else, that will be the time. We'll open it up to the public for public comments. Anybody like to speak?
Will you repeat what you just
Yeah,
said?
this would be the time if you want to make a public comment on the master plan. This will be the only time, or if you want to talk about master plan or anything else you like, now would be the time for public comment.
So you're not gonna allow people to talk after you guys have some input,
This
so we
this
know
would
what?
be it.
Smart.
Thank you. Anybody like to speak tonight? Please.
Might I ask for leeway to finish it?
Yeah, for your letter? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Baldwin. While I appreciate the hard work that goes into a master plan, this draft contains severe mathematical and logical errors that leave our township legally and structurally vulnerable. I will first draw your attention to pages 38 through 41. Forecasted housing demands. Table 8 claims Bear Creek must absorb over 2,840 new housing units in the next 5 years. It cites the 2023 Bowen Report, a marketing report, as its source. But the Bowen Report tracks countywide market absorption, not township-specific data. Additionally, the American Community Survey, used in figures 11 and 12, is not based on actual data for Bear Creek Township, but rather creates estimates based on broad regional data. It is not appropriate to be used for the Bear Creek Township demographic, as it violates the high reliability threshold required for structural planning. To put 2,840 units in perspective, our township added just 341 residents between 2010 and 2020, requiring about 177 new homes for the entire decade. Over the last 3 years, our population has actually declined. The draft plan assumes we will suddenly grow 1,600% faster over the next 5 years than we did during the highest growth decade. That is a demographic impossibility. Even when considering second homes, we can look at the housing units data. To again put 2,840 units in perspective, the U.S. Census data shows that Bear Creek has built a steady average of just 60 homes per year for the last 20 years. This draft plan demands we suddenly build 568 homes per year. The consultant's numbers are suggesting that we need to build more housing in the next 12 months than the township has historically built in 2 decades. Second, to force the map to match this bad data, the future land use map blankets 11% of our township in high density. 11% of Bear Creek is roughly 2,962 acres. At the draft's definition of 6 to 12 units per acre, this opens the door for up to 40,000 new housing units and 80,000 new residents. I guess my question is, are we planning on offering refuge to the entire population of the Cayman Islands in their next climate crisis? That is double the population of the entire county. Our sewer agreements with the City of Petoskey and Harbor Springs Sewage Disposal Authority cannot physically support this, and it would completely destroy our rural township character. We do not need high density to plan for the next 20 years, nor do we need to stretch medium density, forcing us to run sewer all the way to Emmett's house on Rustic Road. That's a long ways out there. Based on actual census data, our real 20-year need for our residents is roughly 300 units. We can solve this entire 20-year need on a single property. For example, yeah, it's one I'm familiar with, the 50-acre parcel across from the Township Hall. It's been for sale for decades, it's centrally located, and most importantly, it already has sewer. If we discount a third of that property for wetlands and road, zoning just a single parcel at medium density, this parcel at medium density, which is 2 to 5 units per acre, yields up to 500 units. Even when taking into account non-primary residences, assuming our population, assuming our area's popularity doesn't wane in favor of up-and-coming destinations like New Hope, Pennsylvania, which keeps popping up everywhere I look, we moderately need a total of 1,200 units over the next 20 years, which could be fulfilled with one additional parcel of the same size as the one that I just spoke about at medium density, not high. That could completely satisfy our actual moderate 20-year growth trajectory while leaving the remaining 25,000 acres of our township untouched. Under Michigan law, you, the Planning Commission, own this plan, not the outside consultant. If you don't have the time to audit these numbers, please withhold sending this draft to the Township Board. Instead, leverage our highly educated resident base. One of Bear Creek Township's greatest assets is its residents. Approximately 16% of our population even has postgraduate degrees, and these people who have advanced training in research, data analysis, evaluation of evidence, and synthesis of complex information. We have residents who have the ability and willingness to contribute meaningfully into this process right here in this room. Pass a resolution tonight to form a volunteer citizen advisory committee to spend the next 60 days tripping out these regional data errors, correcting Table 8 with real census data, and drawing a smart growth map that actually reflects Bear Creek Township, as well as correcting all of the errors and inconsistencies in the rest of the master plan, which I know Carla has probably pointed out most of them to you. As it is, this document is nothing but an invitation for predatory, speculative, high-density housing developers that will choke out any affordability for local residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Dodge.
Thank you.
And I looked at the whole plan again, this new draft, and I was still confused. I think I brought this up before. As far as the maps and the tables, there's really not reference sometimes in the written text as to what is being talked about and looking at the maps. And I guess one example, there's a bunch there, but just there's a wetlands area in Bear Creek Township. It's map 4 on page 48. So there's really no reference to that map in the written text. So I would just suggest going back through there, even if it's like put in parentheses map 4 when they're describing something or something is being written. To me, that's just very confusing. So then too, I did look at the maps that were, I guess it's mostly like the framework map and then the framework plan map and then the future land use map, which I believe that section 11 is what you all were supposed to be, kind of agreeing on, is this okay, and that. I'm really confused about it. I'm looking at, in the future land use, the map that's on, should have had this better. The future land use on page 137, and those terms have been changed too, which is something else where the urban and suburban was taken out, and maybe some other terms too, but it was switched to different sorts of densities. And so I'm not seeing an alignment here with the future land use versus the framework plan. And I don't know if the intent was to take out all of the urban or suburban reference, but there still is a lot of that in the future land use in the written text. So again, I'm really confused about that. I'm not sure how that's aligning. And then, there's probably a few other things. I'm probably gonna run out of time. So I just really wanted to address on page 132 of the future land use, as far as building blocks and utilizing the MISHDA housing tax increment financing for TIF. And now that I'm doing more research and learning more about TIFs and gone to some meetings and all of that, I think that this is too specific to be able to use this financing tool. I think that there should be a much more general statement about that, and I would encourage you to really take a look at that, just given what you might know about TIFs, and also too, how I understand it, that the TIF is going to be approved by the board. So they're still, I think, kind of really questioning that financing tool for whatever development. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I would urge this board not to move the master plan into the 63-day public review period until the necessary corrections have been made. Carla submitted 12 pages of comments, and I hope that you guys really read through them. She makes some very valid points, grammatical errors, spelling errors. This plan does not look like it's ready to go to that public review. We've been working on this process for almost 2 years. I'm not gonna say over because it was July of 2024. At what point does the information become outdated or no longer relevant? Perhaps the board should just consider adopting the 2020 master plan. I think that's an option. Then rather than continuing this process that's become unnecessarily prolonged. My concern that in this draft, it contains content that does not appear to come from the community. It doesn't appear to come from the planners. A master plan should reflect the goals and vision of the residents it represents. Thank you.
Carla Buckmaster. I hope you've all had time to read what I have sent to you. I spent a lot of time going through each thing, and I hope that each of you were able to go through it as well, because it's important. It's going to tell our future for years to come. And so I'm not gonna go over each thing. I hope you went over it. But one thing in particular that struck me was how at a previous meeting that it had been talked about that Tammy and the consultant, and I guess maybe Mitch was in on this meeting, where you talked about combining the township and the county maps so that they fit together better. And I see that on this update for the FLUM, whatever that stands for, the FLUM map, that, you've got all new categories. And, okay, good enough that you wanna have the township and the county maps join. I can understand that. But look at our own township master plan. This is just my property, and across the road from me on Kalinsky Road, my farming neighbor who actually has cows on his farm. It's a farm, it's not just somebody saying they've got a farm. On page 37, our property and the working farm neighbor across Kalinsky both are residential, high density. So why don't all of the maps in the master plan use the same legend labels and color? My property labels vary as follows. On page 118, the July map, I am residential. My farm neighbor is agricultural. Makes sense. Doesn't even need too much explanation. Page 28, the July map, same master plan. I'm labeled suburban. My farm neighbor is called in the category of suburban, farmer. Page 137 again, I'm labeled residential high density. My farm neighbor is labeled residential high density. What has happened that on the February 2026 future land use map, that's FLUM, that now on this July 2026 FLUM, it shows all wavy lines with several individual parcels having two different land uses. One parcel, did you look at that? Didn't make any difference, just draw a line right through that parcel. Falls under two different categories. The actual parcel lines no longer are observed. Did you planning commissions okay this change? It is absurd. People cannot even look at their own parcel and know for sure what the future land use is supposed to be if it has a line going right through the middle of the property. There's so much wrong on this master plan. I think you're gonna have to have an awful lot of discussion yet today, I'm sure. But even after that, it's gonna take a while. There's no way you can go ahead with this. You've got a lot of work to do. And you're supposed to be working for us residents and businesses. Not for developers, not for visitors, consider them, but this is our future. Take care of us.
Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public comment. All right, so we're gonna move on officially on the agenda of the business master plan. All good? Okay. So as y'all know, we discussed chapter 11 already and a joint meeting with the township in a few months, but we have reviewed chapter 11, and as a result of that meeting, I came out of that with a few suggestions for our consultant to work on, such as the zoning and land use categories as they apply to the framework, and come up with a plan for us to basically match the county definitions. So we'd all be consistent down the line, and hopefully other townships would do the same in the future, so it'd be a little more consistency in how we categorize things and colors on maps, that type of thing. That was one of the bigger suggestions that came out of the joint meeting, as well as adjusting some of the densities in the future land use map to basically move some of the lines northward, that type of thing. That was the biggest things that came out of our joint meeting. I'm sure you guys all remember that, we were all there. So again, this is, now it's to look at what our consultant John has done and kind of review that. John, with that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Tammy, you want to go to the next slide? As a result of the joint meeting that we had with the Township Board in May, there was a discussion about potential conflicts in the past between township master plan and the county's master plan relative to some issues like rezonings and PUDs and special land uses that cause some difference between this body and the county planning commission. So we had made the suggestions that before we got too far down the road, that maybe we needed to have a conversation where, because the county is in the process of updating their master plan, that we talk to the county planning staff and they in turn would talk to the county planning commission about coming up with a consolidated land use category that both groups could use, the county and the township. So we're using the same terminology, the same densities, and the same colors on the map. So after the May meeting, we had an internal planning team meeting with the planners that were working on the Emmett County Master Plan, the Bear Creek Plan, and I invited Mitch as the PC chair to represent the Planning Commission here. And we went through these classifications and kind of tweaked them. And then at the July 9th Planning Commission meeting, Tammy took the categories to the County Planning Commission, and then they made some adjustments primarily to the commercial and what we had urban core and mixed use. Their suggestions were have a low density mixed use, a medium density mixed use, and a high density mixed use instead of having commercial. Because the commercial districts, you know, both along 131, 31, and other areas of the county sometimes have a mixture of retail, commercial, office, residential all mixed together. We compared the proposed categories against four recently developed master plans that were adopted by West Traverse, Redmond, Resort, and Little Traverse. And then we also included Bear Creek. And we took a look at how they classified land uses. And they were somewhat consistent with the proposed category list that you have in your packet. So based on the feedback or the review by the County Planning Commission, Tammy provided me the revisions. And then what we did is we rewrote Chapter 11 to include the new categories and the new colors. So go ahead, Tammy. These are the classifications that we came up with. And this is the county classification system that Bear Creek is using in their land use map. We have recreation conservation, farm and forest, which is also a zoning class. We have residential low density, medium density, high density, residential waterfront, residential historic. We have low density mixed use, medium density, high density mixed use, and airport and industrial, which doesn't have a density. So each of the classifications have their associated densities. So the county will be using the same densities, township will be using the same densities. Go ahead, Tim. So when we applied the new classifications, we also wanted to emulate how the county has historically developed their land use map, which is not parcel specific, but more of a generalized pattern of land use. So yes, some of these patterns do divide pieces of property, but this is not a zoning map. This is a future land use map to kind of show what the future land use patterns would look like. And at the same time, they provide the Planning Commission somewhat of a flexibility as projects come up between the zones. So this is not a zoning map, which is parcel by parcel. This is a general future land use map to show how properties or land would be developed in the future in the township. And using the color classification, this is what we came up with. As part of the reclassification, I want to point out that almost 60% of the acreage, and the acreage in the township is not 2,500 acres, it's almost 26,000 acres. So 59, almost 60% of the township is classified either as recreation conservation, which has a density basically from 0, maybe 1 unit per 40 acres, I believe it is, to farm and forest. So 60% of the township is extremely low-density development. The residential development, the low density is roughly 8%, medium density is 13%, high density is 11%, and then you have your waterfront, which is along Walloon Lake, and then residential historic is is Bayview. So you add up all the residential, that makes up 34%. So only a third of the township is designated in some form or fashion of residential development. And then 5% is mixed use, which is either some form of commercial. And then you have 1%, which is industrial, which is located up in the northeast section around the Fochman Industrial Park. So you don't have much industrial. You got 5% mixed use, which is your commercial areas. A third of the township is residential, and roughly 60% is recreation conservation, which is state park, skyline, all the property that's owned by DNR, and farm and forest. And next map, please. The map on the left-hand side is the 2021 Emmett County Future Land Use Map. The map on the right side is the proposed future land use map for the township. You can see that basically we, to some degree, followed what the future land use map for the county is, but we did make limitations on some of the higher density residential development. We pruned it back a little bit. We also significantly pruned back the low density residential, which is the light yellow on the left-hand side. The county map in white is their kind of farm, forest, agricultural. They call it rural residential. On the Bear Creek map, it's in the green, which is the farm forest, and then there's a darker green, which is the recreation conservation, which is the City of Petoskey Skyline Park and property that's owned by DNR and the Department of Treasury. Next slide. I wanted to show with a black line kind of the differentiation between higher growth or more density versus lesser density. So on the county's 2021 future land use map, you can see where the break is on the black line. You can also see compared to the future land use map for Bear Creek, that line between more dense and less dense is significantly further to the north. That's a reflection of the input that we have received from the public, primarily in the survey and at the open house, where there was a desire to protect more of the farm and forest lands in the township. So yes, the future land use map does reflect what we've heard from the public. Next map, Tammy. So if I was to take the black line on the county map, and all I did was move it over to the Bear Creek line, you can see the dash line is the boundary between the higher and the less dense uses on the county map. And you can see how much additional farm and forest we added to the township's future land use map. So we significantly, just by looking at the colors, reduced the amount of development on the north side of the township and reserved over 2/3 of the township in farm and forest. So this is a reflection of what we've heard. And the nice thing about this is that these land use categories are the same that's going to be used by the county. When the plan is adopted at the township level, the future land use map will be given to the county and they'll insert it into their land use map So the township future land use map is the same in the county's future land use map. So they'll be totally aligned and there won't be any discrepancies in the future. But this is a public policy statement that we've actually increased the amount of farm forest, which is extremely low density in the township. So that's how we apply the future land use classifications. And again, this is not a zoning map, this is a land use map, and it shows basic general patterns of land use, and it's not property specific. That's what the zoning ordinance is. The zoning ordinance is parcel by parcel. Do you have any questions?
Do you want to address the land use categories as they apply to the framework?
Yeah, the land use, we've gone over this before at the last meeting, and the framework map is nothing more than general land use patterns. So yes, there's a classification here called urban, suburban. There's one in there called the River Valley, which is the area from the wetlands along the River Road and the railroad area that are part of the Bear Creek system. There's an area called Natural, which is the area by Skyline and in the southwest. Those are just general, to give you an idea how the township is composed. That's not a zoning map and it's not a future land use map. It kind of starts building what the future land use map would be based on, okay? And if you take a look at it, and I didn't want to confuse by putting the framework map on here, but you know, there is some alignment to it, but it's not going to be perfectly aligned. Framework map is, hey, based on what we see, these are some general characteristics of the township. When we get into the future land use map, it's a little bit more specific. And then the zoning ordinance is extremely specific because then that goes at the parcel level, which is not part of the master plan. That's part of the Emmett County zoning code.
Thank you, appreciate that. All right, so I mean, I do appreciate too the fact that some of the main things that came out of our meeting last time you addressed as far as standardization of the zoning land use categories. And that's pretty much what we asked you to do, as well as pulling the density maps further north. And looking at the bigger map that I have, it looks like you've made some specific adjustments that we've asked you to too. So I do appreciate that. Who would like to open this up beyond what I just said? Anybody have any thoughts, comments initially?
On the map or on the text?
In general, yeah, nothing, whatever you want.
I guess can we
You
go?
can start with the maps if
Yeah.
you like too.
Well, I was gonna ask if we could start at the beginning and
Yeah.
work our way back to the map.
We can do that.
Okay, let's do that. I'm gonna pause typing for a minute maybe, so that, I don't know how well that's gonna go, so I can bop back and forth.
Want me to type?
No, that's okay. I guess first, thank you, Jen, because I agree that, you know, some of our feedback, especially on the map, we'll get to that, was taken, and I think this map is much closer than the map provided previously. As far as the actual text of the chapter, can we go through that? Okay. The future land use categories, the comparison of the county with the townships. 100% I agree, we all need to be on the same page. I think that's the right direction to consolidate our categories. I guess my question on that chart was residential high density and mixed use, residential high density and high density mixed use. Bear Creek's residential high density said general urban, and the high density mixed use said residential urban. So I'm wondering if those should have been backwards. Because I would think residential would go with residential and the general would go with the mixed use.
Point of information page are you on?
There's not a page number, it's the chart.
Thank you.
Well, the residential high density says a mixed use, a mix, but primarily residential fabric with a tighter street network and higher building density.
I'm looking at where Bear Creek's descriptors are.
Oh, on the right.
So the descriptor for Bear Creek for high density mixed use is residential urban, and then the descriptor for Bear Creek for residential high density was general urban. So I'm wondering
Yeah,
if
that
those.
was in the previous plan. Okay? We
That's
just-
where these came from.
Yeah, these came from plans that have already been adopted.
I
We
understand.
wanted to take a look at what the other townships were classifying, and we
Yes.
put them into the appropriate categories
Okay,
in order to come up with these standardized.
I am following now. Not what it's going to be, but what it was in a previous
Correct.
iteration.
Now, the high-density mixed use, you're not gonna find that in the township. The high-density mixed use is primarily reserved for Petoskey and Harbor Springs. For example, downtown Petoskey would be high-density mixed use. You don't have high-density mixed use in the township, so it does not show up on your land use map. So I'm showing you the county system, but the only one that you don't have is the high-density mixed use. And then, for example, if you went to Redmond Township, they adopted their plan 2 years ago. But if they were updating their plan, they would probably have a lot of recreation, conservation, farm and forest, and some low density, and that would be it. They wouldn't have any type of mixed use or industrial.
Sure.
So, but the concept is that over a period of time, we're hoping that the other units embrace the categories and the colors, because they're all doing them on GIS. So over a period of time, the map starts evolving and everybody's using the same classification. So when you get to a point where the county says, well, how many acres countywide do we have in low density residential? It's extremely easy to calculate on the GIS system. So that gives us a better idea when the county planning department or the county planning commission does their analysis, they've got some realistic data in terms of how all the acreage within the county is being allocated to it. So Bear Creek is like the first township out of the gate. But, you know, the other communities, I'm sure, will use this classification system.
We're at a point where it's practical for us to do that and be at the forefront too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
Sure.
it'll just make everyone's life
Yeah.
easier in the long run, especially from a planning perspective.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more.
That's the only question I had on that page. I don't know if anybody else had anything on that one.
Look at like cornerstones.
I was wondering if we could jump, yeah, I guess I was gonna jump to 132, but I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Building blocks.
Yeah, the cornerstones and the building blocks. So at the very top of 132, it says direct development based on its intensity to the urban and suburban character zones reflected in the future land use map. Should that say reflected in the framework plan, or should it
No,
say?
that's gonna,
Because the urban and suburban was not on the future land use anymore.
no, it's gonna be its intensity to the high density residential and medium.
Okay, so that language will
Yeah,
get changed then?
yeah.
Okay. And then going down to the last building block, is that gonna be updated too then?
Take a look.
Cause that's urban and suburban pops up again there.
Page 133.
No, 132.
Left side bottom.
That same cornerstone, but the last building
Oh,
block,
yeah,
that
yeah, I'll
urban.
change that.
Excuse me, are you on the managing growth?
Yeah, I'm on
column?
managing growth.
Thank
I just
you.
wanted to make sure if we're swapping out that language that it gets accounted for. Does anybody else have anything under managed growth before I keep going?
Nope.
Okay. Stop me if I'm rambling. On the housing cornerstone, the next
Point of
one.
privilege, can you talk a little louder, please? I do
Yep.
really want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, do you want me to try the mic again?
Yeah, let's give it a go.
I'm almost afraid. Okay, on the housing cornerstone, I agree with Karen actually about taking out the third building block about brownfield TIF. I think that's much too specific. Number one, because the board would be the one to approve something like that, and number two, because depending on the project, the appropriate tool or lack thereof, I guess I want to leave it a little more general. So I guess what my proposition would be, and I'm interested to see what other board members have to say, would be to take out that third building block of the brownfield TIF language, and then maybe that second, soften up the second building block to just kind of say utilize housing tools as necessary
instead of calling out specific programs.
Let me just explain why that's in there. In the community survey, one of the things that people noted was the need for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about it as a group. Mitch has weighed in as a realtor, saying what the median, basically what's on the market, is not affordable. The only way you're gonna be able to do affordable housing and making it available to residents that make between 80 and 120% of the median income is to offset the development costs, and the only way to do that right now in the state is by utilizing the tax increment financing. That's how the city.
No, you're wrong.
No, please.
I disagree. I'm sorry, I had to say that.
No.
It's her opinion.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
An example is the Maple Block project. A number of the units there have been set aside for 80 to 120% median income. And the reason why they were able to do that is that project, part of that project is financed with a tax increment financing. That's a very important piece of legislation that was approved 2 years ago in order to try to provide communities with the ability to provide some form of financing to provide affordable housing, especially for your workforce. If you don't have these type of tools, it's all gonna be market rate, and you're not gonna be able to provide the housing that people in the township said that they would prefer to have. So if you want me to take it out, I'll take it out, but I'm telling you that it's a pretty important tool.
Okay, I'm gonna tag in on that. So, my issue with that is, I had no problem if a developer wants to come forward and say, first of all, the Michigan Maple Block, the block in the city of Kentucky, they were very transparent up front with, we're gonna get TIF money to help clean these properties up and do this, okay? The issue I have, let's go back to Intertown and open a can of worms. It's my Pandora's box. We went through how many meetings, was never brought up. It's gonna be market rate, there's not gonna be anything that's discounted. But my problem is, I really don't have a problem with it being there, but then it's this planning commission's job and the county commission's job to make sure that these developers are open and transparent in saying that and not get hoodwinked. My comment.
So can I ask a question, and I don't know, Tammy, you're probably gonna be able to help me, but a brownfield TIF and a planning commission approval are two completely standalone, can't consider one off the other, is that correct? I mean, I'm probably not explaining that correctly, but can you, I know you're probably getting where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, I mean, they are independent of each other. But to Jeff's point, if a developer comes in, like we saw this at 1550.
They're great tools. I love them.
Too, you know, the developer came in and said, I'm gonna develop this property, I'm not gonna use any public funds to do it. And there it sits. You know, Maple Block, yes, they came in, they said it's full of contamination, we're gonna use this tool.
Yeah.
The planning commission's decision should not be impacted based on whether or not there's a housing TIF associated with it.
Okay.
However, if a developer comes in and says, I'm not using public funds.
We're gonna pay for all this, we're covering the infrastructure, the county, the taxpayers, that's all part of the public record.
Yes, and that's the township board and the county board and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority's decision on whether or not, all three have to agree. But to have it in your master plan is an option for the township to consider, I think is important.
I honestly, I have no problem with being in the master plan. I think it's there for a reason, and it's helped develop some really great properties in our area. I believe that, right? But it needs to be part of the process. Yes, it's not our job to vet financing for these projects, right? But it's not our job to do that. I get that. But at the same time, when comments were repeatedly stated in part of the public record, and then it's really, it's easy for me to be pissed off. Sorry, right? Okay.
So the reason I asked that question, thank you, we're putting into words that I was trying to get across, is if the planning commission can't consider financing when determining a project, I think that all the more backs my point of softening this language. And no problem with people asking to use a housing tool. It's there, you can ask for it, and there may be an appropriate time, and there may also be a non-appropriate time. And so I think if a developer wants to approach and ask for something like that, they're well within their means to do that. But by calling it out very specifically, I don't want this to become, well, this is Bear Creek's policy, I'm allowed to ask for this, and I'm going to grant it. That's what this seems a little too strong for me. So that's why I would prefer just saying, you know, we're open to housing tools, you know, utilize housing tools without specifically calling out which tools and when.
I gotcha.
That's where I was going with it.
I get that point. I like that, actually.
And then,
Sorry,
uh,
I guess, well, before I go on to the one before that, I'm going to go for that order. I'm chaotic.
I was gonna talk about that one.
Hey, go ahead and talk about that one.
Yeah, okay, so, limited number of short-term rentals in the community which take year-round housing off the market. So I don't know how we can somehow change the wording, but we superficially discussed that as a planning commission, that that's an issue we wanted to address. We've done some studies to see where short-term rentals might be in the township, and we've all agreed that that should be a future discussion as opposed to an action item right now. So if there's some way we could maybe soften that language to reflect that we are going to discuss it as opposed to it's already been decided.
Like maybe, but that's actually where I was going to go next, was that bullet point. Like saying, can we explore options for short-term rental regulation or something that's a little more generic? Because to your point, we haven't made those determinations yet. I don't want this plan to be misleading. Does anybody else have any thoughts on it?
You guys agree? And that's a discussion we want to have.
I'll just point out to you that in the community survey, people specifically said that they wanted to limit short-term rentals. So this kind of reflects what we were hearing in the survey.
And we don't disagree or agree yet, but we want to have that discussion. Okay. And come to a conclusion.
I got a question for Tammy. When did this brownfield money start to become available?
For housing in
Yeah.
2023.
Okay,
The state changed the legislation to allow for a housing TIF, where before it was contaminated, functionally obsolete, blighted, owned by a brownfield redevelopment authority or within a core community for public infrastructure.
well, that's one of the things I would complain about with brownfield money right now, because I understand they used it for the block and there was contamination there. It's got a purpose. Now, they're gonna just use it to help developers, and what about other contaminated properties that may not get dealt with because they're using it for non-contaminated locations now? You know, you know,
Well, it's
the
not a pot
energy-
of money that is set aside for contaminated properties. It's specific to the property that is proposed to be developed. And we would be getting into exactly how it's used, but, it's not like you're taking from a pot of money and utilizing it here for that developer, where you could be utilizing that money for, eliminating contamination somewhere else. That's not how it works.
Well, seems to me, everything I remember about brownfield prior to 2023 is everywhere that money was used, it was used to help clean up a contaminated site.
In Emmett County, that would be true,
Okay, but now
to a certain extent.
so now they're able to just start using it for a developer to pad his pocket.
That's not how it's,
Let me explain.
stated in the law.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Hey, John chime in.
Okay. The purpose of the Mishta Housing Tax Increment Financing Program, not to get too specific, let's say the market rate for a one-bedroom apartment, Mitch, give me a number.
$1,400.
1,400. Okay, that's the market rate for a unit. The state housing authority by county has what the rental rate would be for a person that makes 80% of the area median income, 90%, 100%, 110%, 120%. So if I'm a household and I only make 80% of the area median income, the state says my rent should be $800. So that's the difference between the market and the median of the 80%. So that's a $600 difference. Depending on how many units the developer sets aside for households that make between 80 to 120%, they add up the amount of money that the developer needs to be reimbursed to make up the difference between the 800 and the 1400. So that amount of money is then part of the tax increment financing to reimburse the developer for the rent that he's giving up, okay, to provide housing for people that are in the workforce. It has nothing to do with the contamination. It's the rental structure of the development. That's how they can afford to do it. That's why this was such an innovative piece of legislation in 2023. So it's a little bit different than a brownfield contamination project. This one's based on the difference between market rate and the workforce housing rate, which people here in the township, people that addressed the survey, said there was a need for workforce housing for people to live and work in the township. That's how you do it. When you guys get a development that comes before you, like a housing development, I think the appropriate question for the planning commission to ask the developer is, how many units are you gonna have in the apartment complex for workforce housing? That starts the conversation about how they're gonna finance this thing.
We have.
Yeah. Okay, but
Every time.
that's the conversation.
Yep.
But you know,
But that doesn't mean that that's what we get.
Pardon?
Doesn't always mean that's what we get.
Yes.
yeah.
But the
So-
question is always asked.
Yeah.
Not by us, by the
Like
audience.
John said, that's how you start the discussion.
That's how I start the discussion. If you want me to remove it, I can remove it. I'm trying to provide some specific strategies on how to move the cornerstones forward. That's just a strategy that communities are using. But I'm happy to take it out, it's your point.
Yeah. I would say maybe take out the third bullet point and then soften the second one to say something about housing tools, which could include a brownfield, but it doesn't specifically call
And
it out.
developers are gonna know what those are.
Yes, they know what that is.
They all know.
And then they can choose which tool, if any, that they want to ask for, without us calling out and inviting particular
I would
tools.
agree there.
Yeah.
It looks, that to me, it looks like we're recommending them go solicit the
Asking them
schools.
to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we stay on those building blocks quickly? The last building block, I don't know in the time that I've ever been, or I mean, in the time that I've been at the township that we've ever talked about a community land trust. I don't really feel comfortable having it in there without us having a discussion first. So I don't know if we wanna have that discussion or if we wanna remove that bullet point. But I don't see that being something that we're tackling right now. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
It is happening right now, but,
Is it?
you don't have to have it in your master plan, because the township doesn't have a say in whether or not, a property owner decides to do that.
It's a nonprofit organization.
Right, it's run by a private organization.
So we could take
So
that.
we could
vote.
take that out.
If I can go back and tag on what Mitch brought up earlier, and that goes in building block, limit the number of short-term rentals. I think the discussion, I don't think, that's telling you what we should do. Like, the discussion has not even been had.
So maybe the words could be discuss short-term rental regulation.
I would recommend we just change limit to evaluate.
Yeah,
That's
fine.
good too.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I have an interest in that. I am a long-term rental owner and a short-term rental owner. So, and if it comes down to the point, I'm happy to recuse myself, but full disclosure for the minutes, it should be discussed and evaluated,
You're on the map.
not just limited, so.
Thanks, Jeff.
Can we keep rolling?
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything on that page?
Go through that.
Okay. The next cornerstone is economic development, that's page 133.
the first building block, that urban suburban language comes back. Okay. Anybody else have anything on the page? Future land use, page 134. The, chart at the bottom, figure 19, I guess I have a couple questions on that. I think Carla brought up the matching colors, the high density color here. That's the residential high density color is like a taupe-ish, for lack of, it's not even taupe, but I don't know what to call it. And that doesn't match the orange on the map, so maybe making that match. And then, medium density mixed use is not on figure 19. So I'm not sure if that got missed, but that should probably be added because it's on our future land use map. We do, it's red.
No, no.
I don't know. We have them all in, all of them are in figure 19 with the exception of medium density mixed use and high density mixed use. And the high density mixed use we don't have in Bear Creek, so I think that's why that was excluded.
We don't have airport and industrial, do we? Am I missing?
Yeah, we do, oh yeah, that's true, airport industrial isn't on there either, but I think that's because this counts for
Yeah,
residential.
there's no density in industrial.
There's no density for industrial. Either way, the medium density should be on there. And that's all I got on that page.
The only thing I had is my large map, the future land use map, the top northern half is cut off. I don't know if you realize that or not. It's missing a chunk.
Yeah, I had one of the guys at the office.
Okay.
Drop it off, I didn't drop it.
All right, maybe next time you shrink it down to fit it in.
Mine's correct. I plotted mine.
You what? You what?
I said I plotted mine, mine's correct.
Oh.
You know, I've moved and plotted these to get them over to Emma.
Okay.
Emma, I'll just disclose, the coloration is, there's two different programs that we're using. GIS has its, when you do an RDG, the colors come out sometimes differently than when you plot them in design. I mean, we try to get them as close as possible, but they're not gonna be perfect.
I mean, the rest of them match, it's just very different than the orange.
I know.
So I don't know if we can get it any closer since the rest of them
We will
match.
try.
Okay, the rest of them match pretty perfectly. Anybody else have anything on 134? Please
Point
stop
of,
me. I feel
point
like
of
I'm kinda
information, point of information, where it talked about airport at the bottom, I would like to hear some explanation of why airport is in Bear Creek Township, because all I know of is a heliport, which is different than an airport, which has a runway.
Because it's airport and industrials, it's the title.
That's the title.
It's the title that we're making all as for a county-wide, and it's airport and industrial, and we have industrial.
But do we have an airport? No. We have a heliport.
But you're not listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah, I gotta keep it at the board level, Carl, I'm sorry.
Well, can you explain that, please?
I mean, I'd like to not make it a town hall meeting, we can't go back and forth tonight.
You don't have to go back and forth, just give an explanation.
I thought I did that.
It's a category that includes both.
Yep,
I'm sorry?
it's a
It's a
category
category that includes both.
that's going to be county-wide.
Keep going.
Please.
Okay. Page 135, the farm forest should be bolded to match the rest of them. Under residential waterfront, townhouse is spelled incorrectly. There's an S added. And then the description of residential waterfront, I think their description is fine, but it includes the residential uses located along Wallen Lake, Little Traverse Bay, Round Lake, and Crooked Lake. And I'm thinking we should mark those as residential waterfront on the map. So we call them out, so that what's in the text matches what's on the map, because if you go to the map, all of those are not marked as residential waterfront.
Is that an oversight?
Try to follow the county map, but yeah, I'll go back.
Okay. Just so that our text and our map match. On page 136, I think there may be something incorrect with the math. Residential historic has 345 acres, 0.1%, and then industrial has 275 acres, 1%. So that's,
It should have been 1%.
okay, so something there.
The decimal.
Medium density mixed use instead of user, I think Carla called that one out too. Generally, and I know this has already been, these classifications have already been described by Emmett County Planning Commission, which is fine, but I do think when I'm looking at this, it maybe could have been different, I'm not exactly sure how, because when I first read it, medium density mixed use is described as higher density commercial mixed use. And it's not until you read the next, which is high density, that says highest density. So when you're looking at the definitions, it reads, you know, low, higher, and highest. But then on the total, or on the title, it's low, medium, and high. So just the fact that the title is medium density and it's described as higher density, I understand what they were trying to capture. It just, at first read, it caught me off guard, and then once I really figured out what I was reading, I got it. But that's just a comment, I guess. I don't really have any proposed fix to that.
Higher density.
Those descriptions weren't completely approved by the county planning commission. They made a recommendation to change the urban title to more of a mixed use, low, medium, and high. So changing that description to, you know, medium density instead of higher density, that is done without any issues by the table.
I think that would, just because when I first looked at it, I looked at it by itself, and so I was like, oh, it's probably a typo, medium should be medium. And then when I looked at them together, I saw low, higher, and highest. So in the context of together, they make sense, but alone they don't. So I think that would be.
It would read easier.
It would read easier,
Yeah.
Sorry for my million things. Okay, I'm on the map now. I gotta see what page I'm on. 130 something. I'm wondering if Lava Croce should be historic. At the very least, it should be that waterfront again, at least along the edge there. And then, like I called out before, East Bayview, Round Lake, Groom Road. Basically anywhere that touches the water should be that waterfront. I don't think I said Graham Road before, but actually now that I'm thinking about it, if we're gonna add Graham Road, then the text should match that too. And then this is just kind of commentary, but US 31 corridor and then M119 corridor, both, it's sectioned out, that red medium density mixed use. I don't know if we want to put that along the whole corridor or if we specifically have cutouts.
You're talking about right here?
Yeah, I'm talking about the cutout from, it's like just past M119 up to like Pickle Lake-ish.
It's just missing a chunk.
It's missing a chunk. I kind of personally think the whole thing should be one corridor, not broken up. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
And that's all of my many 2 cents. So I'll let somebody else do some talking for a while.
All good points. You got that, John? All good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, what else we got? Anybody else have any suggestions or thoughts going through?
Actually, and just to balance on what Emma was discussing here with this residential waterfront, again, just because confusion, we've got this light purple, or it's a dark purple residential waterfront around Round Lake area. And it's the exact same color of purple on our 4 corners here, division. Is that?
Are you looking at future land?
I'm looking at North Division right here. It's the exact same color as Round Lake. There's a little circle of the same exact residential waterfront color.
Yeah. That's low density mixed use color.
What's that?
It's low density mixed use. The residential waterfront.
So you're just saying the color didn't match because it's exactly the same here.
No, look, if you look at like
Right
around
here, they're
Walden,
exactly the same.
Here's the residential, it's blue.
around Walden Lake is the waterfront color.
Okay.
It's like a dark.
I'm sorry, did that mean colorblind? Because these look exactly the same.
Yeah, that's the mixed, that's the low density mixed use right here.
Distinguish the colors of this.
Okay, so it's just again, it's the color issue then. Okay. Okay.
Because at least on the printed map, around Walden or around Round Lake is not coded as residential waterfront. So that's why I was bringing that up. It should
Oh,
be.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you wanna do, Memo, with brick croche.
Low density.
It said waterfront or historical, which one they want.
Why would you think Lava Cove would be historic?
I guess it just doesn't seem like high density. High density doesn't seem like the right characteristic.
Well, they refer to themselves as like a historic resort,
Yes.
but it's not, they're not officially designated like Bayview is a historic site. So
Probably more accurate to be waterfront, at least along the stretch, not the whole thing, but the, where it's along the bay.
Okay.
Waterfront would be more appropriate.
And then really anything else that's around the waterfront. Crown Lake, Graham Road.
Oh, I agree.
I listed off a couple, I can't remember what else I said.
Crown Lake, you said that.
Crooked Lake, or that would be Graham Road.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. Anything else? Yes. Debbie? Jimmy, have anything else? All right. All right. Anything else you want to add? All right. Where do we want to go with this one, guys?
What's
So,
that?
where do we want to go with this? What are your thoughts as far as next steps? So, I mean, obviously, this is chapter 11, you know, we've reviewed it, we've just reviewed the changes. We've modified some of the changes, of course. So we need to make some decisions on time frame. We've definitely heard from the public on what they want us to do. You know, we need to either pass this resolution to recommend to the township, or we need to continue this onward. And I mean, Carla submitted a bunch of corrections and things that we should probably look at. Whether we do it now, you know, before we do the resolution, or do we consider those in the 60-day
So
period?
again, full disclosure, I've had some real difficult time keeping up with a lot of this. I missed a couple of meetings, and I've been trying to do the email and keep up with it. With the changes, I personally need more time to look at, honestly, I want to look at the stuff Tana submitted, and Carl, I really need to look at that. I think there's enough things we do need to look at. And just we made changes tonight, so, I mean, I just, based on your comment, I mean, I'm not ready to move this to the township. I think we need to kind of at least look at some revisions, and I know personally I need to do a better job of getting caught up on some of this stuff. So, I mean, if the rest of you feel a certain way, I know how I feel. I feel I'm not ready to submit this personally, so, but whatever the consensus is, I just need to let myself, I'm not ready to, I've got more homework to do as I get caught up and clear up some things to give myself more time.
With the meetings you've missed, how long do you think it'll take you to catch up?
You know, I need a couple of weeks to really dig into this with some of the stuff that I've got going
Take
on.
some time out from work?
I don't know about that.
So,
But, I just don't, again, I just wanna be honest here, I don't feel confident saying I have the information to put this to them. That's on me, right? I just gotta.
Well, I mean, Jeff, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm just looking for responses here.
Yeah.
I'm not set either way.
I've read and reread multiple drafts, and I still am not comfortable, so, I mean, I'm the type of person, I just would rather.
I mean, what she said, that's what I meant.
I would rather be as,
She's more
I have
eloquent.
time. No, I'm the type of person that I would like to see this be as close to the final iteration as possible before it goes out to public. Because if we put it out to public comment period, and then we change a whole bunch of things, do we have to put it back out to whole public comment period again? I mean, I wanna get it as close as possible and get a true final draft. You know, if it was one minor tweak, that'd be one thing, but this is way too much to make conditional upon, or an approval conditional upon all sorts of things. That's just,
all the input that we got.
yeah, that's my 2 cents.
All right, well, I think you're kind of getting the flavor, but let me just ask you this, just devil's advocate. Can you better describe the 63-day period and what occurs in that in the process, and what that's for and how it works as we
The
make this decision?
63-day process is, the draft plan is made available to external agencies, the surrounding townships, the city of Petoskey, MDOT, DNR, the utility companies, and we ask them to review and give us their comments. And at the same time, the public can give the planning commission their comments. And then once the comment period is done, then the planning commission goes through all the comments and decides how they wanna revise the plan, if any. But, you know, from my perspective, we've kind of, over the last year, we have gone through chapters 1 through 10 at least 3 times. My concern is, because this keeps going on, I mean, every draft that we do, we're gonna get public comments. Every draft we do, somebody's gonna get up and say it's not ready for public review, even though the public has been reviewing it. And then I have a concern about the data. So, if the planning commission, my suggestion is if you wanna do a review, then I think everybody needs to review the document and come back at the next meeting with and be prepared to talk about it. Because we just can't keep every meeting coming back and going over and over and over again. At some point, you know, like in everything, you gotta put the pencil down and you gotta move forward.
Okay, I mean, I don't disagree with that. So, you know, maybe we can combine John's suggestion, our feelings. Certainly a lot of information was provided to us tonight, and Carla implored us to look at her letter more in depth, and I mean, certainly there's enough material in there where it would warrant some more time to look at it in depth. So taking John's suggestion, maybe we do things like that. You know, kind of supplied a bunch of information tonight too. I'd certainly like to consider that, so maybe we all do our homework, as Jeff has said, and look at those things. And I suspect when we come back and whenever we decide to meet again for the master plan, that we'll all have similar thoughts on correcting it. But certainly not starting the process over again, and I agree the data, and somebody made the point tonight that the data will eventually get old and need to be resubmitted. You know, and I don't want to get to, we're already close to that point. It's been a very long process, so, I mean, maybe this is our 30-day make or break period, so let's review what we have in front of us, let's review what was submitted to us. And again, the 60-day period, it doesn't mean once we adopt this, that it's done. You know, we have that period of time in there to make further suggestions. So it's not like it's the last opportunity, so.
Can I make one request to that?
Please.
Can we have a new chapter 11 based on what we talked about tonight to review?
Yeah.
Okay. Just because that's part of why, I wanna make sure this is all adequately captured how we want it, so we're gonna
We
take.
didn't all write that down, all those changes.
Yes, so I wanna make sure that.
A new
that-
copy of that so that we can
Yes.
compare it to the other comments.
So, but I mean, we're gonna want that sooner rather than later, so our board has time to look at that then.
And we can do it within this time frame, before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we seem to all have a consensus. That's good. All right, any other thoughts, Tammy? Okay, John, any other thoughts?
I'm good.
Anybody else? All right, so we'll figure out when our next meeting will be. I don't know what we have case-wise for next month. Any preliminary thoughts on next month?
We have one case at this point. The cutoff is next Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. All right, based on what the case is, maybe we can combine the master plan meeting with that case. I don't know what it is, I don't want to know now, but, and we'll see. Yeah, that's a good point. We might have to have a special if it's too big, and Emma will be here to do that.
Yeah, that's a real thought,
Right,
that is
right.
real thought. Well, we're honest.
Okay. All right, John, thank you very much. I appreciate it. A lot of good work. Okay, site plans reviewed administratively, there are none.
Only one, 2348 North US 31 Highway. This is a site that was used for auto repair and auto sales, and it is going to be used for dog boarding facility and cat boarding facility too. It was approved administratively.
Dog boarding. Okay. Okay. Anybody have any other business before the board? Nada? Okay. With that, it's 8:52, we stand adjourned. Thank you.